Okay, so just a quick overview of what we're doing, and then we'll do at least one example. Okay, know how to solve this equation. We just noticed that this is an easy multiple of this. So we multiply this first equation by -5, so we'll have negative 10x lined up with our 10x, which we have down here. But what we do is we write down the operations we're going to do. We figure out what we're going to do, and we figure out what we're going to do, and we write out our instructions for ourselves. So we write this, and then we execute it. -5 times everything in row 1. Now, it's a good idea off to the side because you don't want to clutter up this neat process here. It's a good thing off to the side to write down -5 times the quantity 2x plus 5y, parentheses, and -5 times -8. And do the arithmetic and make sure we get this right, even though it's pretty easy to do it. Sometimes it's a little more complicated. But if you're going to do that, and it's a good idea, to reinforce and distribute law and all that stuff, do that somewhere in another column or in another piece of paper, okay? Don't clutter up this progression. Okay, so anyhow, we do that and we get 2 equations, and we can then add those 2 equations. Now, I didn't write down what I did here because it's pretty obvious that I could do that, but here I have this equation 1, equation 2. Okay. Again, equation 1 doesn't refer to this, it refers to the equation 1 of the previous step. Okay. And when we add the 2 equations, we get this. And then we take our equation, which is, we're not writing down 2 equations anymore. We divide this one by -27, and then we get this. Okay. Now, as we've explained, as everybody seems to understand pretty well, I can write down the numbers 2, 5, and -8, and 10, -2, 14. Okay. First equation becomes the first row of this matrix. And I've got a square bracket here and a square bracket here. Okay, I've got this dotted line that kind of stands for the equal sign. Okay, just helps me keep straight what's on one side of the equal, what's on the other. All right. So now I can do exactly the same operations to these rows that I did to those equations, and it's more concise. So I multiplied the first equation by -5 and added 1. Well, I multiply the first row by -5 and add 1. I don't even have to worry about the distributive law now because I don't have the x's and the y's. I just know that every number here is going to be multiplied by -5. So I get -10. -5 times 5 is -25. -5 times -8 is 40. That's real easy to get your signs wrong, so you do want to be careful. If you get -40 here, I think some of them did, then it doesn't work out. Okay, and you check it and you find, oh, it didn't work. I must have done something wrong. Go back and do it again. Pretty soon you learn where the pitfalls are, and you don't make as many mistakes. But always going to make mistakes, just prone to making mistakes. Okay, so we have this equation, this, and now we see that it adds up. That it, and of course, we write down then just equation 2 or line 2. We keep the 2 lines. Now, one thing we don't do is we don't come down to 1 row. Okay, keep the 2 rows throughout. So in the next step, we just add. So we first write down row 1. Then we write down row 1 plus row 2, because when we add these, we're going to get a 0 there, which is equivalent to just eliminating the x's. And we get this. And what do these equations mean? Well, this means -10x minus 25y equals 40. This means no x. And then -27y equals 54. Okay. Then we have first row again. We write down the first row, and we write down second row divided by -27. Well, negative 27 divided by negative 27 is 1. That's why we divide by negative 27. Because now this is going to say y equals. There's no x in there, just y equals, but we still want to keep the 0. Okay. And 54 divided by negative 27 is negative 2. So at this stage, we know that y equals negative 2. And we can go back if we want and substitute, but we're actually going to take it a couple of steps further. All right. Now, we have this problem. Okay. I'm going to write this in matrix form. And I had another problem up here, and there were some disruptions with passwords and our system and stuff. It took a little while to get that worked out. So we're not going to bother with this one because I think everybody did it right. And go ahead and do this one. We'll get the boards over enough. Let's see. Okay. So here's our equation. Now we're going to write this in matrix form as 2, 6, 8, and 5, negative 2, 3. Now we're going to multiply the second row by negative 3, by 3, I'm sorry, so that we'll match up the 6. Okay. So, well, let's label these. This is row 1. This is row 2. Now we're going to write down row 1 multiplied, sorry, just row 1 6, 8, 15, negative 6, 9. Am I right so far? Good. I need somebody backing me up here. Okay. So there we have it. Well, then I keep row 1 because I want the zeros in row 2. Okay. So row 2 is going to become row 1 plus row 2. So I've got row 1 is 2, 6, 8. And then I know I've got to add the rows. I choose to do that with the second row. And I'm actually going to rethink that. Well, I'm going to do it this way. Okay. I'm going to get 17, 0, 17. Okay. Now, write down row 1 and then row 2 divided by 17. I've got 2, 6, 8 for row 1, 1, 0, 1 for row 2. Okay. Now I'm going to do something that we haven't done before. I'm going to switch the 2 rows. I'm going to put the 1, 0, 1 up here. 2, 6, 8 here. And now, don't have as much room as I thought I did. Just 1 here. Okay. So I'm going to write that down once more. I got to write a little small. Okay, this is from before. We'll just bring the operating on. Now, do row one. Is that row's finished? And in row two, I'm going to do this is a little standard. It's valid. I'm going to divide row two by two to get 1, 3, 4. Actually, I'm going to divide it by negative 2. Get negative 1, negative 3, negative. And row 1 plus row 2, that's going to eliminate this column. And I'm going to have negative 3 and negative 3. Then I'm going to write down row 1 again. And I'm going to write down 2 divided by negative by negative 3, which is going to give me 0, 1, 1. My conclusion, x equals 1, y equals 1. Okay? Now I'm going to do it again in a little different order. But you see that we can keep manipulating this until I got 1, 0, 1 and 0, 1, 1, and that's what we're after. At least I want a 1 here and a 0 here, a 0 here and a 1 here. So I've got my x and I've got my y. All right, well, I'm going to do it again. So look, that's a little different. Okay. So this is row 1. This is row 2. What I want is I want a 1 here. Okay. So I'm going to take row 1 and divide it by 2, which is going to give me 1, 3, 4. Okay. Now, why would I do that? If I got the 1 that I want. Remember, what I want to end up with is here's our goal. One, 0, 0, 1 here. And these asterisks should stand for whatever we end up with. In this case, those will be ones. Okay. But whatever the matrix is, this is what we're at. Okay. So in row 2, I'm going to leave the way it is. And I'm going to consolidate 2 steps. I'm going to write down row 1. Then I'm going to do 5 minus sorry, row 2 minus 5 times row 1. Okay. I'm not going to multiply row 1 by 5. So I'm never going to see a 5 here and or negative 5 here and a 5 here. Okay. But what I do is I write that out somewhere else. So I go over into the next county and I say, okay, let's see. Row 2 is 5, negative 2, 3. Row 1 is minus 5 times row 1 is negative 5, negative 15, negative 20. So when I add them, I'm going to get negative 17, negative 17, and 0. Okay. Let's scratch. I scratch that somewhere else. I do what it says. I write down row 2, and then I write down negative 5 times row 1. I don't change anything in these matrices, except now when I write down row 1, I go back to the previous matrix and see that row 1 is 1, 3, 4. And row 2 minus 5 times row 1 is 0, negative 17, negative 17. Operate in the second row. I know that I need to divide that by negative 17, same as I did earlier. So I keep my first row. Second row. Now I'm almost done. We see that I've got a 1 here, a 0 here, and a 1 here. Just looking back at my goal, step 1 here, a 0 here, and a 1 here. Okay. And you see how we got them. Got 1, 0, 1. I just need a 0 here. Then I know what that's. How am I going to get a 0 here? Do row 1 minus 3 times row 2. If I do this minus 3 times this, I'm going to get 0. And I'm going to put that on the first row. And row 2 is already at my goal. So row 2 is, I'll write it now. There's row 2. We don't want to mess with that. That tells us our solution. Off to the side here, I do row 1, which is 1. And I do row 1 minus 3 times row 2, which is going to be negative 3, negative 3, right? Because that we're looking back in this room too, but it's the same. Okay. And when I have those, I get 1, 0, 1. I confirm I get 1, 0, 1, and now there's my solution. In 1, 2, 3, 4 steps. 1, 2, 3, 6, 7, 8, 9 steps. Okay. Now I did have to write down a couple of these calculations off to the right. And normally I'd have you do another example, but we're 2 minutes over time. So I'm going to stop there.